Now I want your calls on this. Should people be banned from smoking within their own homes? Get your calls in now. Let me know your thoughts. An academic has called for new legislation, so a law really, to prevent people from smoking in houses where children live. Professor Sean Semple from the University of Stirling said that current smoking laws have a significant gap in protecting children from second-hand smoke, especially when they're at home. He says children are unfairly exposed to smoke and develop lifelong health issues. Now, polling suggests that 2/3 of Brits agree with him. But is it right for a government to start banning people from doing things in their own homes, even if that is smoking? Larry, how do you feel about that?
No. I mean, I was a heavy smoker. I always tell people this. I used to smoke 50 a day before I had children. I just think that if you're going to take tax from cigarettes, which is a huge amount on a packet of cigarettes, so therefore they are legal, then you can't then tell people they're legal and we're going to take loads of money from you, but actually you can't smoke in your own home. Either cigarettes are legal or they're not legal.
OK, but let's be clear. You can smoke in your own home if children are not present.
Yeah.
OK, and they would say the law wouldn't apply to single dwellings. If you're living on your own, you can do what you want. But the idea is that it's illegal now to smoke in a car with children present. Yeah. The idea is that that should extend to your home.
But you see, a police person can look into a car and see. This would require the police person to knock on your door and come into your home and say, I have reason to believe, madam, that you are smoking in your own home. And I mean, you know,
parents being dobbed in by their kids.
Absolutely.
Go on, Bobby.
I'd say there is like a parallel precedence to this. But as an educator and teacher, if we think a child is at risk of harm in their home, it could be through violence in the home, it could be through alcoholism, drugs, we actually then will call social services, ask for that child to potentially be removed from that unsafe environment. By parents smoking within the confines of their own home with children, we know there's scientifically proven there's evidence of harms to children, especially young children, passive smoking, being around that environment that can impact them in terms of lung cancer long term.
So you think this law should go ahead?
Would you dob somebody in then?
If it's causing harm to the child, especially young children.
But there are so many things that you can do. I could feed my kid donuts all day. Should I be arrested
donuts,
for that as well?
But if you're overfeeding, where we draw the line, if a mother or a father is giving their child excessive fat, McDonald's and hamburgers constantly, then there's a risk to the child as well.
So you think a child should be taken away from a home? Goodness
potentially,
me,
I don't know.
You didn't go that far, Larry.
I didn't say that far, but I'm just saying, if there's serious risk of harm to the child, and we were smoking, secondhand smoking, young children, babies in particular, I think the state should look at protecting those children.
So you think that law should go ahead?
With parents with young children in particular, I can see why it would benefit children.
OK, Bobby says yes. Larry, a flat no.
No.
Well, is your worry that it's overreaching?
Absolutely overreaching. I can just visualise. So you've got, a young single mother, and she's got young children, and she's under a lot of pressure, and she's smoking at home, and then Bobby here finds this out because the child tells him at school.
Yeah, but she's doing harm to...
Hang on. And so social services come and say, we're going to take all your children away because you've had a quick, crafty fag. Now, I'm not suggesting it's a good idea, but actually, I think it's massive. I think we do actually have to have some say over how we behave in our own
I have to say that none of it has involved taking children away. They're just looking at making it against the law. Well, look, this is fascinating. Don't go anywhere because we're going to be taking your calls on this after the break. Should people be banned from smoking in their own homes, particularly if they live with children? But now, let's get straight into the calls on banning smoking in your home. Is that something that the government should do? Get your calls in now. Let's speak to Claire, who's got in touch from Leeds. Claire, good morning. Would you agree with this law, banning people from smoking at home if there are young children present?
Good morning. No, I don't agree. I'm a smoker.
Yeah.
I do have children, not particularly young children now, but they smoke in their bedroom, even though I don't like it, even as a smoker.
Do you mind me asking how old your kids are?
Well, one of them's 20 and one of them's 16.
All right, so one of them's an adult, one of them's 16, not an adult, we should say.
Yeah.
I mean, the government are going to be saying that they might be making it illegal for you to smoke at home in front of your 16-year-old. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's ridiculous, to be honest. I do try to keep it to one room.
But if there is evidence, Claire, that smoke, and let's not talk about your case in particular, but if there's evidence, we know there is evidence, there's no if about it, that inhaling of secondhand smoke for children is bad for them, then why would you want to expose children to smoking?
Unfortunately, I've been smoking since I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
I've had cancer, I've battled cancer. It was nothing to do with the smoking, and that hasn't even stopped me. So I honestly can't see myself stopping now. And I pay the rent, I pay all the bills. Why can't I come home from work and relax with a cigarette?
Bobby?
Yeah, again, maybe I'm not going to address your specific case, Claire, but with children, for example, infants, in fact, those that are exposed to secondhand smoke after birth, they're much more likely to die from something known as sudden infant death syndrome than infants who are not exposed to smoke. So again, when we think about young children, and even children that are 10, 11, 12, the thing is they have no choice, they have no agency, they just have to accept. Again, if a mother or father chooses to smoke in front of them, that child hasn't got a choice. As an adult, I can stay with you, I can vent with you, I can move out, but the children, they have to accept whatever their mum and dad does. And I think that's where the unfairness comes in here.
I think it's hard. I think particularly Claire's situation. Let's say, I don't know whether Claire's got a partner, but again, because a single parent of small children, you can't walk out of the house to have a fag in the garden.
But that child can't walk out the house either.
I know, but the point is that we're not understanding what some people's lives are like. And
Yeah.
again, I'm not promoting smoking anyway, but this idea, who are you going to be targeting parents of young children, and that's often going to be women.
Okay.
And often going to be women who are on their own with children, and so I just think it just seems to me massive overreach.
Claire, do you mind me asking, do you think your kids would have smoked? You're saying your 16-year-old and your 20-year-old are smokers now. Do you think they would have become smokers had you not smoked?
That is a really hard one because I have been on my own for a long time now. But their father, when he was alive, he was a smoker as well. So it's hard to say. I mean, I've got an older son, and he absolutely abhors smoking.
Oh, right, okay. And he grew up in the smoker's household?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, he's always having a go at me for smoking now, and, you know,
right.
Okay. Unfortunately, I'm just addicted.
Claire, thank you. Thanks for kicking us off. Lynn's got in touch from Shropshire. Lynn, good morning, or good afternoon now.
Well,
do
yeah,
you think?
sorry.
Do you think it should be banned from households, particularly if kids are around?
The problem is, I don't see how they're going to manage to enforce it. And a lot of people will say, well, I've done it this long, so they're not going to stop. But I'm 65 nearly, and my parents both smoked 60 fags a day when I was a child. I never left home till I was 21 and got married. So you can imagine the amount of fags smoke that was in the house. I've never touched a fag in my life. I've honestly never even tried one. When I got to just before 60, I got took in hospital with double pneumonia, and it was not long after my husband had died. And he always smoked, and he used to have to go outside for a smoke because my daughter ended up with asthma when she was about 11. Now she smokes, but like I say, I've never touched one. I had a heart attack, double pneumonia, the lungs packed in. So, of course, COVID had just started, so they did 5 COVID tests. The doctors kept saying, no, we can see the pneumonia on the x-rays. So, anyway, I was in hospital 2 months. I was on oxygen 24/7. Like I say, never having even tried a fag. Still, I haven't. I can't stand the smell of them. And then 5 weeks after the 2 months, I was whipped in again with an embolism thing on the lungs, you know, and so I've been on blood thinners and angina tablets ever since.
Oh, Lynn, I'm so sorry to hear of how poorly you've been, but thank you for getting in touch. I mean, Lynn also, you know, not putting up the point that how do you enforce that? But I guess, Bobby, you've given us a hint that teachers will be noticing, and perhaps that's where the government might rely on enforcement, where maybe it's teachers.
Yeah, I think so. Again, if you think about...
Fancy joining the stars, did you?
But I think attitudes towards things can change. I remember smoking before, people would go to pubs, clubs, any venue, and I remember actually, I listened to a radio documentary last night about smoking, and people were saying, oh, if they stop smoking in bars and pubs, I'll never go again. But they don't smoke now, and people go to bars
we
and
got
pubs.
used to that.
We can change culture.
Let's speak to Helen, who's got in touch from Kent. Helen, good afternoon. What would you like to say?
Oh, well, hello, everybody. Thank you for taking my call. It just occurred to me that when I was a baby, my mother said she used to put me out on the balcony. Well, I was born in January. She said it was very cold, but I wouldn't stay indoors. Well, guess what? My father smoked. And that was, and she never realised that was the smoking. Well, now I'm 87 and I've got heart failure, unfortunately.
Right.
And my consultant said that's through smoking. And I wanted to say to her, I was brought up in a smoking atmosphere, and my father never stopped smoking till the day I got married. Now, isn't that really strange? But I'm really keen to say that smoking around children is an absolute no-no, because my husband, his father smoked, and he's had asthma all his life.
Right. So Helen, would you support this? Would you say that the government would be right to ban smoking at home with young kids?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Helen, thank you, Helen. I'm only moving on just to squeeze a few more people in. So many people have wanted to have their say. Thank you, Helen. Peter is in Glasgow. Good afternoon, Peter. What do you think? Is it the government overreaching, or is the government protecting children?
It's the government overreaching and bashing smoking. Any responsible... good afternoon, Alexis and panel, sorry. Any responsible adult wouldn't smoke when there's kids. They don't do it in the car, or they shouldn't. I had 4 kids of my own, and I've got 6 grandkids. And I wouldn't dream it. If one of my sons or one of my daughters come in with their kids, I wouldn't dream of smoking. And
you
if I had been
smoke
smoking,
around kids. But Peter, what about we know that people do smoke around their kids. Perhaps some of them are not as considerate as you. Don't you think we should, some people are saying we should have that law, just if people are not being considerate around their kids, that the law should be there to protect the kids?
No, well, I mean, it's the same thing about, look at drinking.
Okay, Peter's not having it. He's not happy with it. Thank you, Peter. Let's squeeze in James in Greater Manchester. James, what do you think? Overreach or sensible?
Well, I think there's 2 main points to this. There's nanny state government, and then there's health and responsibility.
Okay.
So I don't think the government should be able to tell us what we should do within our own homes. However, I think people should be responsible for their actions within their own homes. Okay,
but the government's telling you what you can do in your own car, because it is illegal to smoke in a car with children. So why not be able to tell you can't do it at home as well?
Well, technically, it's illegal to smoke in a car on your own, because that's classed as a distraction, so you can get a ticket for that.
I think that's whilst driving that you're saying. I'm not quite sure. Is that true? Not quite sure. But it is illegal to smoke in your own car with your kids. So why can't the same apply to when you're at home?
Because it's it's a very good point. However, it is your own home. The point I would make is if you're a responsible person and you judge a situation, then you should see who is in the like. Personally, I'm a single man. I do smoke. And if anybody comes into my property who's a non-smoker, who doesn't like smoking, regardless of whether they're a child, an adult, whatever, I will go outside and smoke my cigarettes.
OK. James, I have to leave it there. And I have to tell you that this law wouldn't apply to you. Single dwellings would be exempt from this law. It would only apply to households where kids are present. Thank you, James. Thank you all for your calls on this. So many of you wanting to have your say.